So despite everything that's happening and as aching as it is, I mean, there's got to be a wisdom, right? We believe, like, you know, and I forgot who said this, but it's like, you know, no matter how high their warplanes fly, God's above them, right? So we know there's a wisdom here. 75 years, 150 years, another year, 2 years, Allahu Alam. And you were alluding to this earlier. You said, like, they're so resilient and Allah wouldn't test them, like Allah wouldn't burden a soul more than it can bear. That's an ayah, right? And they're being tested, but there's a wisdom. I mean, let's you know, only Allah knows, but let's just talk about that. I mean, why is this happening to the best of our human understanding? Like, what is it? What's, you know, what is it? What's the wisdom? I mean,
so that's
it's not for nothing. They're not just, you know, it can't be, because Allah is the most just, and eventually it will show.
100%, 100%. So I was asking the exact same question, right? And at first, and where my mind took me is to, like, go back into the history. Have we been here before? Is this unprecedented? And the reality of the situation, if you know your history, we actually have been here before. Not 10 years ago or 50 years ago or 100 years ago. During the time of the Crusades, right? And you would think, where's the Crusades and where are we here? Like, how can you find the connection? First of all, the Crusades, when they were launched, there was actually peace in that region, in Jerusalem, in Bilad al-Sham, in that entire Mediterranean area. There was actually peace. Christian pilgrims would be allowed free passage to come in and to leave Muslim lands through the entire empire, and without any harassment. Jews lived in Jerusalem, were able to live, do whatever they want. When the Crusades came, they came not to sort of free an oppressed people, their oppressed people, Christians, because they, by any measure, by any Christian scholar would tell you that they were absolutely not oppressed. But they came in specifically for a political agenda, for domination. And they succeeded. For 200 years, they succeeded. And so I think to myself, here we're 75 years that we're going through occupation. There was an occupation of 200 years. And if you don't understand your Islamic history, you'd think that you'd have a very simplistic view in terms of, like, we have an ummah, they were all unified throughout all of history. We had one Khalifa, and then at some point in history, we began to decline. And that's absolutely not the case. We've gone through ebbs and flows in terms of how united our ummah has been. And during the time of the Crusades, when it began, Muslims were absolutely not united. They were actually divided. They were in Muslim city-states that were warring against each other for power. Brothers, one in Halab, in Aleppo, one in a leader of Damascus in Damascus. And they would raise armies and hire assassins and try to kill each other. We had a figurehead of a Khalifa in Baghdad. You had a completely different Khalifa in Egypt. So it was more or less chaos. Nobody trusted one another. Even when they tried to fight the invading Crusade army, they would actually say that they're going to unite, and as soon as they come to the battlefield, one army would then turn back and leave the other army to be destroyed. We've been here before. We're literally repeating history.
It's probably worse than now, in a way. Right? It is, yeah.
Honestly, and what that tells me is there was a hope. People talk about Salah ad-Din Ayyubi, and I apologize for being long-winded, and they think that Salah ad-Din Ayyubi came, and he is someone who is special and dear, not just to Muslims, but to Christians, because of how he carried himself and how merciful he was. But people, especially within our community, romanticize him to the point of, like, he was a saint, or he was someone that could do no wrong, and he was someone that sort of grew up with having the most amazing amount of it. No, he was, in his youth was like any other youth, and he grew up within that environment. And things happened before even his birth in order to put him in the situation where he could go and free the people of Al-Quds and unite the Muslims. And that is people turning back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At the time of the Crusades, there were scholars, there were people who had high iman, who saw the situation, the desperate situation of the Muslim ummah, and decided, we need to do something. We need to do something, even if it's small, so and ask Allah to accept it and bless it, so that we can bring peace and justice to this land. And what they decided to do is just small Islamic education centers that spread all over the Middle East. Doing what? Telling people to turn back to Allah. To remember at a time when everyone was looking to be insular, everyone was looking to take care of their own affairs, their own wealth, their own people within their own city walls, to be known, this is an ummah. You must care about everyone. You must take care of the poor. You must stand up for justice, regardless of the cost. And so these small Islamic educational centers that promoted justice, this is what Salah ad-Din Ayyubi grew up through. Nobody of those scholars and those believers thought when they were starting these that this is going to be something that would eventually, automatically change the situation in Al-Quds and remove the oppression that's there. Nobody even dreamed of that. But they said, the only thing I can do is this small thing, and I ask Allah to accept it sincerely. And that's the beautiful thing of Allah, about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You actually don't need to do much. You just have to do something purely, sincerely for His sake, and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless it, and then watch what happens. Because it's not something that you're doing, it's something that He's doing. Yeah. He subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking it and will bless it and will help the Muslims, inshallah, come back to establish what? Not vengeance, but to establish justice and peace in the land. And even when Salah ad-Din Ayyubi was able to reunite the Muslims and open Al-Quds, we know what happened. There wasn't a massacre like when the Crusades came in to Jerusalem. And the pilgrims continued to be allowed passage even after that time. And so that gives me hope that, inshallah, we are seeing, every time we see the brutality of the occupied forces, it's not a sign of strength. It's actually a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
Right? And this is what I'm seeing, and this is the hope that I'm getting. And I apologize, I'll end with this. There's an ayah in the Quran that talks about تَحْسَبُهُمْ جَمِيعًا وَقُلُوبُهُمْ شَتَّى, the Surah Al-Hashr. And right now you're hearing that, like, when you think about the world uniting and giving the green light to the occupied forces to come in and do the atrocities that they're currently doing. When you look at our own United States government, we're hearing now, previously you'd hear rumors of, like, some people oppose what's happening in Palestine from the previous wars. Now we're hearing open discontent within the U.S. State Department. Josh Paul, a senior director in the State Department, resigned. 11 years in the State Department, resigned, and said it's because of this. He said, when we signed with the Biden administration an agreement that if we're going to send weapons to any country, irrespective, that we must apply the Leahy Convention, which is a convention that says if these weapons are going to, more probably than not, be used for human rights atrocities or violations, that we will absolutely not do it. And he said, when this situation happened and they were talking about the State Department, like, what should we do? No one started to argue the fact that, like, if we give the occupied forces these armaments, that they're going to use them against Palestinian population and kill thousands of civilians. And so he's the one who's speaking up. You'd never hear about this before. No one would ever quit their job over this. The fact that just recently we heard 400 staffers from Washington, D.C., signing a letter calling for a ceasefire now. Seeing our Jewish brothers and sisters from the amazing organization of Jewish Voices for Peace protesting harder than we're protesting to call for an end to the violence and for the end to the occupation. That gives me hope, inshallah.
Wow. What's the craziest or most inspiring story that you have, seen or heard that really, give you hope?
Again, I just have the perspective of being here in the Bay Area and operating my businesses as the leader of a team, watching everything that's happening on social media, mostly the children, seeing the children every single day. They're putting it out in front. I watch Craving Palestine. I don't know if you follow that on Instagram. And there's no censor. But the biggest challenge that I was faced with is whether to speak out. Again, Muhammad, you said something that really hit me, is that this is when we should be the loudest. And I was on the fence because my business is within the Willow Glen community, the Los Gatos community, and it's predominantly Caucasian. It's a good community. I have nothing bad to say about it. I've got nothing but support. But I knew what I was facing, and there was several people, maybe more than several, I'd say at least 30 to 40 people who had reached out to me personally through social media platform and asked me, oh, okay, Hisham, well, what are we going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And
is it in a positive way or
in a
like
positive way, more so like,
okay,
what can we do? There was a few that were pretty angry, and they just needed somebody to jump out, and I think what they really wanted was they wanted to help, but they just didn't know how. I'll be completely honest with you. With the fight that we had over the years to start the business and get it to a platform that we wanted to get to so we can survive, and there was some fear with me that I think that a lot of people feel, but there was this I remember this one video I watched one night, late night, and I watched children crying, and we see it over and over again, and I went to bed, and never in my life, in the 6 years I've been with my wife, she never seen me talk in my sleep or anything like that. I had the worst nightmare I could ever imagine. I was screaming. And I don't remember the screaming because I was asleep, but I remember the nightmare. And she woke me up, and she's like, "Oh my God, are you okay? What's going on? You're in a fight." And I was swearing, screaming. My immediate thought was, this isn't the nightmare. This was just not even a glimpse of what is happening, And at that very moment, I knew I had to do something. I came out the very next day. I said, screw this. I'm using the platform that we have. We partnered with Lisa, with Murchies, Bay Area Halal Foodies. I got on the horn right away with Halal Fest. And we combined an effort, and I'm just gonna say, inshallah, whatever money we raise, I'm gonna use the foundations I've used before, people I trust within Islamic Relief USA, UNRWA, PCRF, and we're gonna give 50% of our profits on a particular day to the organizations, to hopefully, inshallah, get to the people, if inshallah now. But I'm going to give it to them so they can get it soon, inshallah, but whenever. I just get it there. And so that was what really sparked me. Of course, there's, stories there is real, the truth about the bombings of the hospital and now a church. But that is just one thing I really wanted to share with you guys, because the hesitation, and then something hit me that night, and I just went with it. And I don't know. I don't want to call it. Maybe the dream was sent from something. I don't know. But I'm born here, and I had that nightmare. I had was wallahi, I swear I was there. And if even for a moment. But my immediate thought was, this is nothing. That was nothing. That was a drop, a pin drop.
Because you got to wake up in your bedroom.
Oh, I woke up in my bedroom.
In Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah.
But I jumped up, and I got to do something, And
yeah, I mean, I just really wanted to share that.